Just one question. Yeah, yeah, God is great. Yeah, yeah, God is good. Yeah, 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 yeah. What if God was one of us? Just a star like one of us. Just a stranger, one of us, trying to make his way home. If God had a face, what would it look like and would you want to see? If seeing meant that you would have to believe in things like heaven and Jesus and the saints and all the prophets, and yeah, yeah, God is great. Yeah, yeah, God is good. Yeah, 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 yeah. What if God was one of us? Just a star like one of us. Just a stranger, all of us, trying to make his way home. He's trying to make his way home. Back up to heaven all alone. Nobody calling on the phone. Step on the pump, baby, and roll. Yeah, yeah, God is great. Yeah, yeah, sing with me, sing it. God is good. Yeah, 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 yeah. What if God was one of us? Just a star like one of us. Just a stranger, one of us, trying to make his way home. Just trying to make his way home. Like the holy rolling stone. Back up to heaven all alone. Just trying to make his way home. Nobody calling on the phone, except for the pump baby in Rome.
Interesting theology, that. What if God was on the bus with us? Echoed and sung that theology by the great Robert Nestor Marley when he sings "The Mighty God is a Living Man." It's an interesting thing to think about the holy as dwelling amongst us, however we understand the holy. And as I think of that theology shared so wonderfully in that song by Morris and Marcus, I'm reminded of Palmarius's injunction that hospitality, as an expression of love, is a higher virtue than piety. And this is an ancient church father saying this, right? Because faith is not about belief. Faith is about relationship and mission and practice. What are we doing? And why do so many spiritual traditions emphasize being kind to the stranger? You've heard these scriptures. Be kind to the alien because we were all once strangers in the land of Egypt. And those stories like my favorite from Genesis, with Abraham, who's a leader of a huge agricultural enterprise. Here someone might visit him. So he sits at the door of his tent, not in the middle of the compound where he could hide and be safe and let one of his many servants greet the stranger. He sits in the place of danger, the front door, to be the first one to welcome the guest. I recall that challenge by Jesus that when someone asks for your shirt, he says, what? You give him your coat also. That command he gives to that one rich man who, looking for an easier way to heaven, is told by Jesus, sell all you have, give it away, and come follow me. That particular man does not follow that advice. And these tales are complex. They hold up lofty, difficult goals, tough spiritual challenges, asking us to stop what we're doing, set aside our task, to unbend ourselves and our ego, and to attend to the one knocking at our door. These lofty goals are things to be strived towards. They are not easy. Few, if any, ever live them out in completeness. And these lofty spiritual goals, well, if they were easy, we wouldn't have to talk about them so much in Sunday worship. Generosity and hospitality became core values in Scripture, scholars claim, for obvious reasons. Think about it. In ancient times, there were few, if any, accommodations like hotels, motels, and inns. There were no rest stops. There were no mile markers or exit signs. There weren't even any exits. There were no signs to let you know that there was some food around the corner. To leave one's village or town was to place oneself in existential danger. To deny comfort to a stranger in the desert hills of Judea, where most of the Bible takes place, could literally mean sending them off to die. But even so, today with us, any one of us may have to pick up all we have in haste and find a new home. So hospitality remains more important than piety, or in my estimation, all other spiritual disciplines. But the secret is we get a reward. Living into our duty to be kind to the stranger exposes us to an unknown other, granting gifts of which we may have never dreamed. We may hear of places we've never visited, ways of living that we never imagined. We could learn new skills, new song, or sample new food and drink they may have brought. The givers of hospitality are the ones who receive gifts of blessing and grace for simply taking that time to say, hello, come in, take off your shoes. May I get you some food, something to drink? Do you need to wash up? A place to sleep? It takes toil, sacrifice, to live a rich spiritual life. The rules, though not easy to follow, are simple. Be radically welcoming before anything else. And yet perhaps the greatest reward that we receive when practicing hospitality is an encounter with the holy. In a passage about church discipline, Jesus says, where two or more are gathered in my name, I am there also. To gather in the name of Jesus means for us that when our intention is informed by timeless ideals worthy of our devotion, like hospitality, generosity, curiosity, that something larger than ourselves enters the room. Gathering in the name of nurturing hearts, homes, and communities, we invite another presence, something holy, whether we call that presence a being, our mission, love, or the larger truth. The way we treat the stranger, this is how we shall be measured in the reckoning of our lives. Did we serve the holy by welcoming the least among us?
So you know what I have the hardest time with? It's that unbending oneself that Reverend Scott talked about, and that was in the second reading that Nina shared. The unbending of oneself is to take oneself away from the particulars of life, perhaps my to-do list, and to welcome the stranger that has just come into my presence. I have a tough time with that because I am focused. I focus in on all those things that I need to do, and if I lose that focus, maybe I will lose my place. Maybe I won't know what comes next, and it's hard for me to unbend myself and to greet the newcomer in my presence. But when I do, I'm no longer focused on words on a page and check marks. I'm focused on something quite beautiful. I want to ask you to pull into your heart and your mind an experience when you were welcomed. When you felt that you were seen fully for who you were, when you were protected, when your life was held in the caring arms of someone else. Pull that into your heart and your mind. Let it settle in your spirit. And when it's there, think of a word that you might use to describe that experience of being welcomed. I'm going to move my hand across, and as my hand comes to you, I welcome you to share your word aloud.
Presence, grateful, safe.
Gratitude.
Grace. Fulfilled. Recognition.
Amen. Amen. This is divinity at work. My theology is a theology of relationship. All that is divine, that is sacred, that is blessed, happens in the space between. The space between people. The space between the earth and our toes. The space between a tree and our vision. The space between our hearts and what we understand as divinity when we reach out with prayer or meditation or reflection. To be welcomed is to be seen, to be heard, to be named, brought into relationship. It is to be told with words or gestures, your presence matters. Your being here, it changes me. Your being here, it changes what is here. Your being is necessary. The first place that I ever traveled out of the country was Grenada. And I was there with my parents, but I decided to go out on my own one day. And it had been raining, and then the sun was out, and it was glorious, and all I wanted to do was to be out in nature, experiencing it. And I started walking down this winding, beautiful path with the sun glistening through the wet trees, and I heard in the distance the most beautiful sound. It was the sound of children singing. And so I followed that sound up a winding path, and I saw before me a small chapel. And the voices of children singing were filling the air. And so I had to, right? I had to walk in. And I peered into that place around the corner of the door, and I saw I was the only one with white skin. And it seemed that I was also the only one who was a traveler, who maybe didn't belong. And I thought for a second, should I go in? But then I did, because there were voices of children, right? And so I had to go in, and I sat down in the seat, and I listened, and my heart just began to be flooded with the joy of this place. But then the worship service began, and I got a little nervous. Have you ever been in a worship service where there's a whole lot of stuff going on and you don't know what your place is? Stand up, sit down, say this, respond, shake hands, but not the wrong hand. It's unnerving, it's uncomfortable, it makes you feel like this is not my place, this is not where I should be. And I was afraid that was going to happen. I'd found by this point that I was in a Seventh-day Adventist congregation, and I'd never been in one before. But this dear, beautiful woman came and sat right next to me. And she leaned into me, and when strange things were happening, she whispered in my ear, "Stand, sit, read this, sing." She helped me through the whole service. And then it came time for prayer. And we were being invited to pray with one another. And she held my hand, and she knelt, and she invited me to kneel down next to her. And she prayed for me. She prayed for me in the most remarkable way that held me. And then she said, "Will you pray for me?" And invited me to give her the gift of my words. I have never in my entire life been welcomed like I was in that space. That was divinity at work. And I remember her. I remember her face. I remember what it felt to kneel down in that small, light-filled, thin-walled chapel and pray. I remember because when she dared see and feel me, she changed me. In my theology, the holy does not penetrate our being without relationship. The hands of two perfect strangers clasped in prayer brings the holy down to earth. This does not mean that all our sacred work happens in the presence of others. Introverts know. They would blow up and dry away. If they didn't, they would dry up and blow away. I hope I'm not going to blow up today. Introverts know they would dry up and blow away if they didn't reset and recover from the presence of others. So to do this, I sit in meditation. I carve out space within myself to release the tensions, the blockages, the hecticness of days. But I never end my meditation without relationship. I end by sending out my karma as if it were a postcard from my inward travels. And I send it out to someone who needs it most. I think of someone who's hurting or struggling or just someone that I love. And I let the peace that I have cultivated bubble up and reach beyond my being. Even in my solitude, I affirm I am never alone. Everyone who ever welcomed me is there with me.
It's great to imagine, to me, always being able to summon those who have welcomed me in moments where I'm alone or in despair. And this unbending ourselves, it reminds us that we need to give priority to what's really important, something other than our to-do list. This is because every encounter with a stranger is a potential to encounter the holy anew. We should feel deprived when we do not have new people in our midst. When we are not actively inviting those not like us into our communities, we lose chances for grace, enrichment. Author of our second reading, Dr. Amy Oden, shares the age-old guidance of how we live into this duty of hospitality. First, we offer warm greetings, words of welcome or an embrace. We ask our guests to tell us who they are, what food they like, what would be welcoming to them. We invite them to tell us about their journey, their dreams. We invite them to tell us about their needs. And in so doing, we honor their right to self-definition. We should not assume we know more than we know, right? So let the guest tell you about their hometown, their heritage, their children. And another piece of this first stage of welcome is that it's not always passive and receiving. It may be us going out to visit those we know are alone and in need. Whether we're going to someone's home, out on the street, to the hospital, or a jail, our visitations, these efforts to serve, are holy work. Hospitality's second step is restoring the guest whenever they need. Food, drink, clothing, rest, an ear to bend, a prayer. Hospitality demands we learn something about the stranger. Consider that time for all ages, that animal school. This showed us this, like to ask the duck to run like the rabbit might be termed cruelty. One size never fits all and is not enough. To be hospitable means we learn what our guests need and try to provide it, whether they're vegan or paleo or gluten-free. I once was part of an interfaith group just before seminary that had a bad habit of not getting kosher or halal food. And over time, some of the leaders wondered why the rabbi and the imam never came. Pretty simple it was to me. Before seminary training, they were never adequately welcomed or considered. The next step of hospitality includes dwelling together or doing tasks together, uniting for common goals. These practices reframe social relations and demystify the stranger, thereby making us all allies simply by listening and learning. It makes us more eager for the next guest. And then, of course, is the sending forth, equipping that guest to succeed in their quest once they leave us, and praying for their safety once they leave. And practicing hospitality is not a solo act. Our congregation, our family, even the block where we live are all cars on the welcome train. Hospitality is best considered with a heart of gladness, embraced not as a chore, but as a gift. To live and serve where two or more are gathered in the name of sacred duty, we become attended by the holy.
Whenever two or more are gathered, In my name. What name? How about the name of love? Or how about all of those words that we shared across the room? Gathering in this sense is far more than filling a room with people. If you, as a newcomer, have chatted with me on a Sunday morning, perhaps I've had the chance to offer my favorite means of welcome. Perhaps I have introduced you to someone else. It's not because I don't want to talk to you. It's because I thought you should know, or perhaps you should just meet someone else who could welcome you. Do you know how frightening it can be in there in Fletcher Hall during Connection Cafe?
What?
Some people, I know, are completely at ease in a big room full of strangers. But those are very strange people. If you are meeting someone for the first time, expect that there are others in the room that they also don't know. Whose job is it to introduce them? Ours. It is all of ours, and it is our calling to knit this community together with relationship. If that's how the holy manifests, if that's how beauty and all of these wonderful words manifest, then whose work is it? There's a phrase that is most often shared as a call to justice, to changing the world, a gift from the ancient sage Hillel. Hillel says, and if you know this with me, say it, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? Yes. And in this age of increasing isolation, when the majority of people across our nation claim that they have only 1 or 0 close friends, in this time when we are all dying for community but don't know where to find it and can't remember how to build it, perhaps the greatest justice work of this time is connecting one soul to another. If not now, when? And if not you, who? You were at one time the newcomer, standing in the corner at Connection Cafe. You were looking down into your coffee, wondering where the connection in Connection Cafe was going to happen. You were once the stranger in the land of the you. And now that you have made your connections, you are the person that the stranger has been waiting for. What do you say? How about hello? Right? Hello, my name is. And it might not be a good idea to say, are you new here? Because there's a good chance that the newcomer is just new to you. That they've been here for months or even years. And here's a line that could also come from a genuine place, but it can really hurt. Why are you here? It might be meant as an invitation to conversation. Why are you here? But it sounds like an accusation. Why are you here? So start with yourself. Introduce who you are and what you love about our community. That gives your guest power. The power of knowledge. And what if the person that you meet is aching? What if they are suffering a loss? What if they need something more than conversation and introduction? You know what? You have exactly what they need. You have presence. You have spiritual presence that you can give. Just like the woman in the Seventh-day Adventist congregation in Grenada. She knew that I felt out of place, that I was alone, and she held me in prayer. seminary about how I didn't agree. But that doesn't matter, because what I needed was presence and love and all of those other words, and that comes through even theology we don't agree with, if we say it with love. And the last time I looked, this place is called a congregation. That's a faith community. A place where people sing, where people meditate, where people pray, where people read words from hymnals and screams. So you have the training. You can hold someone's hand in silence. You can share the words from a hymn or a responsive reading that are meaningful to you. You can even find a prayer in our hymnal and share that. Words that have kept you going will keep someone else going. And you can introduce a person, please do, to Reverend Scott or myself or a member of our care team. Your presence is a manifestation of the holy. Truly it is. Whenever two or more are gathered, if not now, when? All that is holy happens in the space between.